6 things about last night's final that almost nobody's actually talking about today. Number 2 is going to make you want to go rewatch the entire match with fresh eyes. And number 6, I'm just gonna say this now, is the single most unbelievable stat to come out of this entire World Cup. If you skip ahead to find it, that's on you, but I genuinely wouldn't. Everyone's covering the same 3 storylines this morning. Messi's legacy, Yamal's coming out party, Spain lifting the trophy. All true, all covered to death already. This video is everything else. The stuff buried in the box score that actually changes how you see this final. Let's go. Here's one that barely made a single headline this morning. Spain has now played 9 World Cup matches across their entire history that went to extra time. 9 separate matches, spread out over decades of tournament football. You'd think a team with the talent Spain has consistently had would have racked up a healthy pile of extra time goals across all of that football. They've scored 2, total, in their entire history. And here's the detail that actually gives you chills once you actually sit with it. Those 2 goals are Andres Iniesta's winner in the 2010 final against the Netherlands and Ferran Torres' winner last night against Argentina. The only 2 extra time goals in Spain's entire World Cup history are both World Cup final winners, 16 years apart, scored by 2 completely different generations of players who never even shared a dressing room. That's not really a coincidence anymore at that point. That's basically a pattern, almost like this team saves absolutely everything for the one single match that actually matters most. Compare that to how most teams handle extra time at major tournaments. Usually it's a lottery. Whoever has legs left, whoever gets a lucky bounce. Spain's entire extra time history across every World Cup they've ever played says something different. Either they don't need it and win in 90 minutes, or when they genuinely need it, it produces a trophy. There's no in-between result buried anywhere in their history. Okay, this is the one I promised you at the top. There have only ever been 3 recorded instances in World Cup final history of a single player completing over 100 passes in one match. 3. In the entire history of the tournament's biggest games. Dunga did it for Brazil back in the 1994 final. Rodri did it for Spain last night, finishing with 101 completed passes. Quick pause here, because if you're the kind of person who watches these breakdowns start to finish and still somehow hasn't subscribed, this is genuinely your sign. We're at number 2 of 6, right on schedule, so go click it now, then come straight back, because number 6 is worth staying around for. But Rodri isn't even the wild part of this stat. The 3rd player to ever hit that 100 pass mark in this exact same match was Pau Cubarsí. He is 19 years old. A teenage center back just quietly wrote himself into World Cup final history alongside Dunga and Rodri, and almost nobody's talking about it this morning because everyone's attention went straight to Yamal instead. It's a small thing in the grand scheme of one final, but it tells you something real about this Spain squad. This isn't a golden generation built around 1 or 2 headline names. There's a teenager quietly running the game from the back 4 while everyone's watching the forwards. Ferran Torres came off the bench and scored the winning goal in a World Cup final. That makes him only the 5th substitute in the entire history of the tournament to do exactly that. 5 players across every World Cup final ever played have come on from the bench and decided the biggest match in the sport. And there's something almost fitting about who it was. The match everyone spent a full week billing as Messi versus Yamal. The past against the future, the aging genius against the teenage prodigy, ended up decided by neither of those 2 men. A 26-year-old substitute who fits into absolutely none of the storylines anyone built this final around, walked on with fresh legs and settled the whole thing in one finish. Here's a stat that's going to genuinely sting if you're an Argentina fan. And honestly, it should, because it might be the single cruelest detail buried in this entire tournament. Messi's numbers this World Cup: goals, assists, chances created, successful dribbles, Every single measurable category the stat sheets track were better than his numbers from the 2022 tournament. The one he actually won. The one where he lifted the trophy and finally silenced every doubter who ever questioned whether he could do it on the biggest stage.
Sit with that for a second, because it's a genuinely strange thing to process properly. He played a statistically better World Cup this time around, at 39 years old, than the one where he actually lifted the trophy at the end of it 4 years ago.
8 goals and 4 assists this tournament, up from 7 and 3 back in Qatar. More chances created. More big chances created. More successful dribbles completed at an age when most players have long since lost that kind of explosiveness entirely. And this time, all of it wasn't enough to get the actual result that matters. Sometimes the underlying numbers tell you a completely different story than the one the final scoreline agrees with, and this is about as clear an example of that gap as football has ever produced at this level. He didn't get worse, he got better. The result just didn't follow this time.
Argentina did not record a single shot in 90 minutes of normal time last night. Not one attempt on goal in a World Cup final. That has never happened before in recorded football history going back to 1966, the first year this kind of detailed data even starts getting tracked properly across the tournament.
Think about what that actually means for a second, because it's easy to read that stat and move past it too quickly. A team built entirely around Lionel Messi, with a squad that had scored 19 goals just to reach this final, tied for the highest goal total of any team across the whole tournament, went an entire 90 minutes in the single biggest match of their careers without a single attempt on target. That's not bad luck. And it's not just one-off night either. That's a team that got completely, totally suffocated by an opponent playing at an entirely different level on that specific day. It's worth remembering, too, that this same Argentina side had spent the whole tournament being praised for exactly the opposite quality. A relentless, attacking, front-footed identity that had carried them through every previous knockout game. To watch that same team produce 0 shots in a final tells you almost everything you need to know about how completely Spain controlled this match from start to finish, regardless of what the eventual 1-goal scoreline might suggest to somebody who only checks the final result. And here it is, the one I told you to wait for right at the start of this video. Messi had exactly 1 shot across the entire 120 minutes of football played last night. 1 shot in the last World Cup final of his career. And it didn't go anywhere near the goal. It smacked Spain's Mikel Merino directly in the face. The greatest player this sport has ever produced, in what is almost certainly the final World Cup match of his career, playing statistically the best tournament of his entire life, had 1 single shot the entire game, and it bounced off an opponent's head instead of troubling the goalkeeper even once. You could not script a stranger, more deflating final image for a career like his if you sat down and tried for a week. And honestly, that's the story of this whole final wrapped into one moment. A genuinely brilliant, tightly fought tournament, decided by a substitute nobody predicted, a teenage defender quietly making history in the shadows, and the sport's greatest ever player producing a single shot that ended up bouncing off somebody's face instead of finding the net he's found more times than anyone alive. So there you go. 6 things about this final that the highlight shows and the morning after headlines aren't really telling you. Which one actually surprised you the most out of all of them? But drop your answer below either way. I want to see what actually lands with you. And if you made it all the way through that build-up and still haven't subscribed, I genuinely don't know what else I can possibly do for you at this point. See you in the next one.